All right. So let's talk about the meanings of the words, and then we'll actually get to the questions. So, marine in the 16th century, an age of great marine and terrestrial exploration, Ferdinand Magellan led the first expedition to sail around the world. All right, so tell me about what does marine mean and what does terrestrial mean? Which you'll know because you looked up for homework, right? So what do your notes tell you? Right, related to the sea. So having to do with the ocean, and terrestrial, on the other hand, is having to do with the earth, right? Relating to earth and its inhabitants, yes. Okay. If you want, if you're a sci-fi fan, you know, sometimes they tend to refer to earth as terra, or version of this word, relating back to terrestrial, right? All right. Tell me about quagmire. What is a quagmire? Okay, so literally, it could be a sort of muddy piece of land, like soft land that will suck, like a little bit like quicksand, not exactly like quicksand, that will suck you in if you try to walk on it, right? So, right. So soft, wet, but it's used not politically, sorry, metaphorically here. That people sink into, right? So let's see. Magellan led the first expedition to sail around the world. As a young Portuguese noble, he served the king of Portugal, but he became involved in the quagmire of political intrigue at court and lost the king's favor. So it's not literally soft wet land. What does quagmire mean? If you are in a quagmire, you could be in a pickle. Have you heard that expression? In a predicament. Sorry. A dangerous situation. All right, so I apologize. I'm getting over a cold. Maybe some coughing as the hour goes on. All right, after he was dismissed from service by the King of Portugal, he offered to serve the future Emperor Charles V of Spain. So we just saw that, right? He went sailing on behalf of Spain. A papal decree of 1493 had assigned all land in the New World west of 50 degrees west longitude to Spain. All right, what is papal decree? Papal means what? Having to do with whom? Oh, I left out intrigue, my bad. All right, so yes, intrigue could be a verb to make somebody interested in something or curious, yes. Or it could be bacchanal, or it could be curiosity, yes, or a curious situation. I feel in this case it is closest in meaning to bacchanal. Right? It's the noun here. So it's a curiosity, an area of curiosity. Right. Tell me about papal. A papal decree, what is that? Having to relating to who? To the Pope, right? Or who's a representative of, or the head of the Roman Catholic Church, not a representative of, my bad, the head of, right? So just like marine had to do with ocean, terrestrial had to do with the earth, papal means related to the Pope. Right? All right. Where are we going next? Magellan offered to prove that the East Indies fell under Spanish authority. And just now we saw that he offered to prove that he could get another trade route to the Spice Islands. Because right now Portugal was blocking everybody from sailing that way, the way that they knew, right? But according to here, he's trying to prove that the East Indies belong to Spain. Right? The East Indies. We are the West Indies. So who's in the East Indies? All right. Magellan offered to prove blah blah blah. Okay, on September 20th, 1519, Magellan set sail from Spain with 5 ships. More than a year later, one of these ships was exploring the topography of South America in search of a water route across the continent. Right. So topography is the shape of the surface of the land. The hills, the mountains, the valleys, the depression, the land surface, right? The features of the land surface. All right. Route is like a road, a way to get somewhere. Right? What is sought? So the ship sank, but the remaining 4 ships searched along the southern peninsula of South America. Finally, they found a passage they sought near 50 degrees south latitude. Okay, so peninsula is a piece of land projecting out into the water. Almost completely surrounded by the water, right? Can you all picture Florida on a map? On a map in your head? The state of Florida, right? Almost surrounded. All right. Right. Sought means they were looking for it. To seek, it comes from to seek, right? All right, so they were looking for a passage. Magellan named this passage the Strait of All Saints, but today it's known as the Strait of Magellan. What is a strait? Right, so you have 2 big land masses on either side of a strait, and it's a narrow passageway of water, right? Between 2 large land masses. Okay, panorama. Okay, so a view of a wide area of land, so a broad view, yes. Okay, what is the meridian? That's an important geographical term, right? What is the meridian? Okay, so this is a geography. If you do geography, you've met it before, you will meet it, right? It's like an imaginary circle that passes through the middle of the earth and connects the North Pole and the South Pole, right? Okay, what about insula? Later, Magellan became involved in an insular conflict in the Philippines and was killed in a tribal battle. Did you find isolated for insula? Or having to do with an island? Right? So if someone or something is insular, then it is separate from everyone else. Right? So isolated in terms of views, right? Or having to do with an island. Topography, we said, was the land surface, right? The study of the land surface. Well, I didn't put in study, but the study of the land surface, right? Okay, now meanings will not be exactly the same, but if you have the same general idea, of course you don't have to write it over, right? Sorry. All right, tell me about precipice. Another word online for insular, this is a nice synonym, is narrow-minded. Okay, 2 words. Well, if we have a precipice, we could throw something over, yes. Right, a very steep and tall cliff, right? All right, now these words, even though they are a lot of them used for geographical terms, such as a precipice, insular, um, maybe even straight, maybe panorama, peninsula, topography, they can all be used figuratively when you're writing, right? So when we do our next writing exercise, we're going to try to incorporate them into our writing. Okay, I'm giving you all 2 minutes to note anything you need to. Okay, 1 minute because you did this to homework, right? So 1 minute to note anything you need to. Okay, so here's Magellan. Here's the king of Portugal telling him to go away. Okay, so tell me, you can put your answer in the chat. Well, actually, you can write it down first, then put it in the chat, right? Who was Ferdinand Magellan, and how did he end up sailing for Spain? Right, the section of the passage with the answers right here. So you can put, if you want to put your answer, write it down first and then put it in the chat. That would be fine. Right, who was he? And how did he end up sailing for Spain? 1 minute. Okay, good. So let's look at the answer. Who was he? As many of you have said, he was a young Portuguese noble. So Magellan was a young Portuguese noble who led the first, we can't say he was the first to sail around the world because remember the video told us too that he died, right? And the passage tells us that too. Who led the first expedition that sailed around the world, right? So if he was Portuguese, how did he end up sailing on behalf of Spain? I have to say, Spain was pretty clever, you know. Christopher Columbus was also not Spanish. You can't just tell me king, and you can't just tell me that he sailed on behalf of the king, right? To get all our marks, we would have to say, we would have to interpret this part here, right? So we could say after he was kicked out of the Portuguese court, we could say after he lost the Portuguese king's favor, right? So he sailed for Spain. See, this we could also say because he got caught up in the quagmire of court, right? But this is a little bit vague. What does that mean? Did he do something to offend the king? Did somebody say he did something? Did people gossip about him? We're not sure. But we know for sure the king stopped supporting him, right? So he sailed for Spain because he lost the support of the Portuguese king, right? Remember that Portuguese has a special spelling, right? It has a U here in front of the E, right? Okay, so half a minute, fix anything you need to fix. Right, so the question we're trying to answer, what was Magellan trying to prove according to the passage, right? A papal decree of 1493 has assigned all land in the New World west of 50 degrees west longitude to Spain and all land east of that line to Portugal. Magellan offered to prove that the East Indies fell under Spanish authority on September 20, 1519, blah, 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 blah. Right. So one of the interesting thing here that I was going blah blah over. More than a year later, one of these ships was exploring the topography of South America in search of a water route across the continent. The ship sank, but the remaining 4 ships searched, and finally they found the strait. Right? Okay, so to answer the question, I think there are 2 possible answers. What was Magellan trying to prove? So write your answer first, then put it in chat. Okay, good. So this piece here, right? He was trying to prove that the East Indies fell under Spanish authority. Right? So what did the Pope do? You can see it in the image here. And if you watch it TED Talk before, you saw it as well, right? He said he didn't want his Portuguese children and his Spanish children to fight. So he divided the map in half. And he said, all right, Spain, you can have this territory. And this is the same line over here. Right? But the map is flat. So, and Portugal, you could have this stuff. Right? So, in the video they showed us Spain was trying to get over here. But they couldn't pass this way because Portugal said no. So they had to go around, right? And the passage is telling us he was trying to prove that this space belonged to Spain. All right. Let's go to the next question. Anybody needs a minute again to write, or we have that answer? That was pretty straightforward. Let's go to the next one. 2 questions, actually. Why did only 17 sailors from the initial expedition complete the journey? Right? Only 17, boy. What additional fact did Magellan's journey prove? All right, so you find the answers. Right, okay, so just once more, the previous question, what was Magellan trying to prove? He was trying to prove that the East Indies belonged to Spain, right? Now, I just now mistakenly highlighted the West Indies, but it's really the East Indies, right? The islands closer to Australia. All right, why did only 17 sailors from the initial expedition of like 5 ships complete the journey? Right? Oh, look at that. The ships are going, right? That was because, as you all are rightly saying, it was due to disease, starvation, right? Let's find it in the passage. Ooh, starvation and disease, right? And if you mention anything from before, like a ship sinking, that would be okay too. Nobody did, but you could, right? And then also if you mention their involvement in an insular conflict in the Philippines, right? Insular in this case meaning the conflict happened on an island. Remember the video said 30 people on a beach died. 30 Spanish soldiers rather, right? Insular in the sense of on an island, right? So many died due to starvation and disease, scurvy and others. Right? So many died. Right? Others to conflict. You got a comma, and others to conflict, right? Okay. What additional fact did the journey prove? It proved that the earth was round, right? That there was no edge, people would not fall off. Like this cool picture suggests here. Right? Okay, any questions? Keelan, I'm looking up. I'm sorry if I missed your answer. Okay, I'm responding to you to you in the chat, right? All right. So we're ready to, okay, so this is the last piece of the passage. I'm just leaving the screen up for a minute again, and then we're going to continue with something else, right? All right. Guys, the password for English, the classroom is EAST, okay? EAST, or common letters, right? Okay, let us move along here. Last week we talked about some rules related to commas, right? Do we need to review them or we remember what they are? Let's review them quickly. Uses of the comma. To separate items on a list, right? So in this sentence, we would put commas. Henry likes cakes, chocolates, and pastries, right? I hope you finished your homework, organized your bag, and packed your lunch. So sometimes the items on the list are more than one word. Carrots are beautiful, wholesome, and delicious, right? So if we have a list, we separate items. If we're talking to somebody, so like when you're writing stories, especially, in front of their name. So I need to find a new job, Sheila. After their name, if the name is coming is at the start of the sentence, Harry, I really like this tea, old chap. So I also need to put one in front of old chap because that's kind of my nickname for the person, right? Girl, you would not believe what happened next. So girl, comma. So when I'm addressing someone by their name or whatever I call them as their name, I put a comma either after it if it comes first in the sentence or in front of it if it comes afterwards in the sentence, right? Okay, we also talked about yes and no. Right? So oh, and please, we talked about please. So after yes or no, before yes or no, if that's how the sentence is structured, but and then before please, right? Or after please, if that's how the sentence is structured, right? Right. Okay. And we had one more slide, did we? Yes, to separate introductory words or phrases in a sentence. So when the rain is falling, I use an umbrella. Right? After the car caught on fire, I drove to the mechanic. If I could only drink one beverage the rest of my life, it would be coffee, right? So notice that in this last sentence, especially, it would be coffee is 1, 2, 3, 4 words. And the introductory part is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, right? So even though it's more words, it doesn't matter. The point is, it's not a grammatically complete sentence. It's in front of the grammatically complete sentence. So it gets a comma, right? Right. Any questions about that? Then let's try this exercise and put in the missing commas, right? So let's do the first two together. And you're going to ask me if you have to write down all 10. So I'll tell you what, I'll tell you which ones to write down. Write down. You could write down all 10. I'm not stopping you, but if 10 is just too much for you to write and it's too overwhelming, I'm going to give you some. I'll choose out 5, right? So these 3 to start with. And this one, right? Okay, so let's do the first one together. Yes, good. Thank you to those of you who are sending your answers in the chat. The closet contained worn clothes, old shoes, and dirty hats. So this is a list, right? So the first item on the list is worn clothes, and then old shoes and dirty hats, right? Now, in British English, we do not typically put a comma here in front of the and. In American English, they do, right? But we write British English, so we don't typically do that. Right, good. I'll come after one close. Let's do the next one together. The uninvited guest wore a dark blue tweed suit. Dark blue tweed. This sentence, this one is a little harder, I think. Where do we put the comma here? Do we put it after dark? Do we put it after blue? Do we put it after tweed? We cannot put it here. So if anybody is saying put it there, that is like exceptionally wrong. Right? We would not put it between a subject and a verb. We never put a comma between a subject and its verb. Right? So no comma there. I just need one comma. So tell me which of these three is the correct one. I only need one. Is there such a color as light blue? Is there such a color as dark blue? The color is dark and blue together, right? So I can't separate dark and blue. I have to put it after blue. Good. Right. Some grammar books will tell you a trick to sort of help you figure out if a comma goes there is to ask yourself, can you put and? So dark blue and tweed suit. Sometimes that will make sense to us and sometimes it won't. But if it helps you in a question, you could try it. If you could mentally say and, you wouldn't write it, but if you could mentally, and it would still make sense. All right. Okay, I'm gonna give you a time to try 3 to 10. Please write down the ones with the blue ticks at least, or you could write all. But those in particular, I want you to have as examples. So write out, you could choose between 1 and 2 if you want. 2 gave us a little trouble, so maybe you could consider writing 2 as well. And when you are done writing in your answers, you can send your answers in the chat. You do not have to type out the whole sentence. You could just type out the word and then a comma. Right? So like for the first one, you could write close, comma. And now I would get the answer from that, right? All right, so 2 to 3 minutes here. We're going to correct, and I'm going to suggest to people that if you got a question wrong, that you write it down, right? And I mean, in addition to obviously paying attention to why you got it wrong, right? All right, so I can't look at the answers in the chat to give you feedback right now, so you can correct based on what we say, right? All right, so 1 we said come after close, 2 we said come after blue. Number 3, after surviving this ordeal, the trapper felt relieved. So we have to put it, we have introductory words and introductory phrase, introductory clause. So after surviving this ordeal, it's a clause because it has a verb. It's more than a phrase, right? Now I definitely cannot put a comma here because that would be a comma between the subject and the action, the verb, right? No commas between subjects and verbs. All right, after a good washing and grooming, the pup looked like a new dog. Right? So the main sentence, the pup looked like a new dog. I would put a comma after grooming. Because of their opposition to institutions that force creatures to live in captivity, some people refuse to go to the zoo. All right, so the comma after captivity, right? Anybody want to talk to me about the because at the beginning of the sentence and tell me, oh, you're not supposed to start a sentence with because? Has the teacher ever told you not to start a sentence with because? Yeah, right. Well, the reason we say that is because um typically a lot of students will make a mistake and not put in this comma and then have a complete sentence after it, right? If you only had this as a sentence, right, it would not be complete because of the opposition to institutions that force creatures to live in captivity. Well, what about it? If you're speaking, that might make sense in response to something somebody said before, but on paper, that is not a complete thought, right? So we say it, okay, I don't say it, but a lot of teachers say to students, don't start the sentence because, and that is to try to stop them from creating a fragment, right? All right. As I mentioned, the rules can be broken occasionally. As I mentioned, the rules can be broken occasionally. Having decided to eat only natural foods, he had to give up all of his favorite junk food. So look at how this modifier is attached to he, right? He is the person deciding to give up to eat only natural foods. So this is okay. Having and then he, right? To estimate the costs, he consulted a repairman by phone, right here. After costs, right? To give Jane a good look at the university, Mr. Benson drove up for the day on campus. So after university, right? Introductory phrase. Since the dog had started to run, a way to catch him had to be found, right? So comma after run. Since the dog had started to run away. I don't know if some people might have thought this was supposed to be away and then that changed things, but since the dog had started to run, a way to catch him had to be found, right? All right. Any questions? Anybody completely confused? Okay, so take a few minutes. Take a few minutes, make any corrections you need to, write down any additional sentences that you couldn't understand or that you had trouble with. Take a few minutes and do that, please. By few, I mean, I'll give you one and then ask if anybody is still writing. Guys, sometimes we will miss class, right? Not me, because I'm always here, but sometimes students need to miss class because, yeah, no, and then me too, right? Things will happen in life and you can't attend a live class, right? When that happens, try your best to watch the recording, do the homework. Our classes build one on the other. So if you miss something from the week before, something that we do this week, may not stick as well, may not make sense, etc. Right? All right, can we take our break now? So 5:36. All right, now we are starting our first big writing topic for the term, right? And that topic is the argumentative essay. Right? We're gonna write essays. We're gonna work on the building blocks first, and then we're gonna write essays, right? Now, before we get into that, let me give you a heads up about the homework. The homework is reading homework and watching videos homework, right? So the first topic we're gonna talk about is technology and its impact on us, right? So I have here an article from New York Times written by a student for you to read. The name of the article is Does Technology Make Us More Alone? Right? Now, there's a video that it refers to that's on YouTube. So here's the link to the document with the passage, right? And also I will post it. So we'll post it under the homework for today's class. There's a video reference there. And the link to that video is this one here. Well, the second one, actually. I forgot my phone, right? And then there's another video, How is your phone changing you? To take a look at, right? So I'm putting those links to in the chat. So we're looking at these to give us ideas so that when we come to write our essay, we won't be thinking about the topic for the first time, right? So our first thing we will start with is putting together notes next week on the topic. What we see from the videos, what we got from the article. We may not watch the videos. I might play the videos at the beginning of class, but before class time, we may read the article together in class, depending on our time. All right, enough of that. I want you to take a look at this cartoon and tell me what message is this cartoon trying to convey? What is the message it's trying to send readers? Right. Okay, good. Thank you, Luke. So the cartoonist is trying to say that this man is some kind of hypocrite because he's outraged about legalizing drugs, right? Question mark, question mark. But he has a table full of legalized drugs already. Alcohol is a drug, caffeine is a drug, nicotine is a drug, right? And probably these newspapers suggest also that TV is a drug, that spending is some kind of addiction, lottery tickets, playing lottery also an addiction, right? All right. So what do you all think? Should we be outraged at the legalization of certain drugs, or are we all already wrapped up? Is society already wrapped up in a whole bunch of already legalized drugs? The cartoonist is making us think about all that, right? All right, let's look at another picture. What y'all make of this one? In a different world, and you see a giant killer whale, how's your confined neurotic life? And you see a man with a scuba tank, scuba gear, swimming in a fish tank. So what is this one pointing to? What is this cartoonist trying to get us to think about? Usually, who would be in the fishbowl? Or the aquarium, or the swim tank? The fish, the killer whale specifically, right? The orca. But, and then, well, okay, so what does the cartoonist want us to think about, consider, to, that the fish, right, he wants us to think fish feel confined, and when the fish is in there, the fish is trapped, right? Maybe all animals in cages, possibly, right? Right. Okay, I think I have one more picture for us to see. All right. Let's see if we can make out the text here. So, oh, great author of passive entertainment, bestow upon me the discordant images at such speed as to render linear thoughts impossible. And then he sits in front of the TV. So even if we can't make out the words, you can get it just the pictures. What is Calvin is the little boy's name? What's he going in front of the TV for? Something educational? He's going there. Don't we sometimes do this? We put on something so we could just be a vegetable in front of the screen, and we don't have to think for a while. Right? That is what he is saying in this picture. Right. Okay. Okay, so let's get to the actual topic, which is what is an argumentative essay. So let me ask you all, what you were looking at just now, were those cartoons or were those arguments? What were they? They were both. Okay, good answer. Right. All right, good. So what then is argument? Is argument quarreling on the streets? Is argument quarreling with anybody at all? In an argument that we write, do we have to disagree? What is this? What is it? Sorry, this is what this should be. All right, so it's okay, great. So what is it? Let's do this together, right? So in an argumentative essay, we write our views on a topic, right? In an organized way. What is the goal of the essay? Just now, what would you say the goal of the cartoons were? Was it to, what the goal was? Was it to entertain you, make you laugh, make you think? What was the goal? Was it to make you reconsider something? Was it all of the above? All right. So a strong essay, right? Makes the reader think, makes the reader believe what the writer said. So a strong essay persuades the reader. Right? To see the writer's point of view. Okay, so let's I'm gonna get all the notes out and then we're going to I'll give you time to write it down, right? So tell me about the structure of the essay. How many paragraphs should this essay have? Sorry. How many paragraphs are we putting in our argumentative essay? Four to five, right? 4 to 5. So 6 is too much. 8 is definitely too much. 3 is not enough, right? So typically, a 4 to 5 paragraph essay, right? What is in these four? What are these 4 to 5 paragraphs made up of? The introduction. That's one paragraph. A body, which is 2 to 3 paragraphs, and a conclusion. Right? These are your essay must go through these sections. Okay? Each paragraph should be 6 sentences. About 6 sentences, right? I'll put 4 to 6 sentences. Right? Each body paragraph must be on only one idea / point, right? The essay must have a clear point of view / stance on the issue, right? So there is an exception to that, right? Let me put this in slideshow mode here. right? And the exception is that sometimes your teacher, and only your teacher in school, well, I guess it could be me too, but I won't ask you this, is they could ask you to write a balanced argument. That is a thing, it exists, right? But if it's not your teacher, if it's CSEC or NCSE or some other context, you need to pick a side, right? So I'm going to put in handwriting down here. Sometimes you could be asked. So this is not for CSEC, right? This is for lower form students to write it's called a balanced argument. Right? With points for both sides of whatever the issue is. But this is not typical. Okay. Any questions? Anything additional anybody wants to say about the essay at this point that you know and I didn't say as yet, or something different from what you're familiar with? If you have an additional thing to add, you can tell me in the chat, right? All right, I'm going to pause here and give you time to take this down. Okay, so what can you see in this cartoon comic strip? There are two sides to every argument. If I can take both of them, everyone will agree with me, or not, or not. Class finishes at 6:15. We'll probably finish at 5 minutes earlier, right? So in about 15 minutes at the most. Right, guys, what is this little comic strip trying to tell us? If you take both sides of an argument, will everyone agree with you? Have your friends, any of you have like two really good friends and they ever got into a fight and you agreed with both of them? Did they appreciate that? Okay. All right. Well, as I said just now, right? For the most part, you will not be able to give both sides of the argument. You will have to give one side, right? All right. What else do we want to talk about? How to write an essay. Good. So now we're getting into the actual writing of the essay. So what? No, not the introduction yet. My bad. What is the first thing you would do if Miss gives you an essay topic? Let's talk about what you would do, and then let's talk about what I want you to do. Plan it out. Good. Yes. Okay. You make a plan. Brainstorm. Right. So before we actually plan, we have to brainstorm. So brainstorm, plan. Then ideally we would draft, and then we would reread and edit. Right? These are our steps to writing an essay. Now, in terms of how we lay out the essay, that's we would explain that with different words, right? Looking for some numbers here to put. Right. So brainstorm, plan, draft, reread, edit. So, we shouldn't expect ourselves to write something perfect the first time around. Even teachers can't do it. Most writing is better when you look at it again. Everything, right? Is there anything that you'll do for fun, any hobby that you have, and you check it over, or you double check what you've done before you have a finished product? What is a hobby that you guys have? Anybody works on cars? Anybody paints? Anybody, okay, playing a game. All right. So do you ever use that process of, well, you wouldn't reread, but if you're planning to do something, do you double check the plan before you actually execute it? All right. So most things in life, in order for us to do them well, we don't just do it and leave it. We refine the process. It's the same thing. Like, okay, like if the first time you made a cake, did it come out as good as the 10th time you made the cake? Right? The first time you cooked a macaroni pie, was it as delicious as the 10th time that you made it? Right? The more we do something, the better we get at it. So plan to look over your writing. We won't have time to write something 10 times in class or in school, but you will have time to check over for mistakes, right? Okay, so let's get into just, we wouldn't finish, but we will start, we will get like an overview done, right, of the parts of the essay. So 1, introduction, right? It has to have 3 things. It has to have a hook. It has to have some background info / connection to the question. Well, actually, sorry, let me write this. Paraphrase of the question. That's really what I want. Right? And it has to have your thesis, which we spent the last 2 weeks talking about a little bit, right? All right. After the introduction, you have a body. Right? So, body paragraph 1. Body paragraphs start with a topic sentence. Writing topic for some reason, right? That says a main idea. Right? It contains explanation, details, facts to explain the main idea, right? To develop the main idea. Right? It ends with a closing sentence that repeats the main idea. Okay, all right. Sorry. Lucy and Tumusho. Okay, right. By body, I'm gonna write new paragraphs. Right, and I'm gonna put in brackets 2 to 3 because it just depends on what you're able to write about the topic, right? If you could get 3 paragraphs, sure, 3 paragraphs. And I'm gonna put in the word each here. Each body paragraph starts with. Okay, so you have 3 things to remember for the body paragraph. A topic sentence to say the main idea. Explanation, details, facts to develop the main idea, because people don't live in your head. We don't know exactly why you're thinking what you're thinking or why you're saying what you're saying. And then a closing sentence that repeats the main idea. And then the third thing is the conclusion. Right? And the conclusion's job is to just repeat main points, repeat overall opinion. And if you are feeling fancy, you can say why your argument, say why people should listen to your argument. Say what the consequence would be for ignoring you. Right? All right. Now, for an essay to be strong in the eyes of a person marking the essay, it must have an introduction, it must have a conclusion. If the essay doesn't have a conclusion, it automatically tells the reader that this is a weak essay because they assume that you didn't know you had to write a conclusion and that you can't, as opposed to you ran out of time and you didn't have a chance to put it in, right? Your essay must have multiple body paragraphs. It must have 2 or 3. They must see indents or they must see skip lines. Otherwise, they assume that this person cannot organize their thoughts. Therefore, they cannot write a good essay. As opposed to something like, well, I was really rushing and, I didn't get to proofread. No, that is a serious offense. Like some offenses will take you straight to jail with no bond, not having an introduction, not having a conclusion, not having separate body paragraphs, straight to jail, no bond. Okay. Any questions? Right, so this is the last thing we have time for. I've given you an overview. So your homework this week is just reading homework. Reread these notes. Take a look at the article that I sent to you, the videos that I sent to you in preparation for next week's topic. We're gonna actually work through an essay, right? All right, so I'm gonna be here. If you have questions, you can send them. I'm leaving the screen up. You can finish making your notes. Once you are done, you're free to go. And I will see you all next. Some of you Saturday, some of you tomorrow, I don't know. Some of you next week, right? Take care, everybody.